race 2 is about to get underway, and we have Stephen Daly in P2 and David May in P3, who, after picking up his first ever podium, you must be thrilled to be here.
Oh, I'm delighted. It's a dream come true. Very hard to get here, and it's took a long time to get here. Hopefully we can replicate it in race 2.
So the start's got to be key for you getting even further up the podium.
Well, this is it. If I can replicate the start I had in race 1, who knows? Who knows? But you never know in the BMW compact. So we'll wait and see. I'm going to give it my all.
Well, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, David. We'll let you get on for race 2. Brilliant. So we're going to hand it over to Andy to run you through the rest of the grid.
Yeah, thanks, Lyndsay. Well, it's the finishing results from race 1 that set the grid for this one. So it's Jones from Daly from May, your top 3. Owen Hunter 4th, Matt Parks 5th, ahead of Ben Huntley on the 3rd row. Sam Carrington-Yates and Tom Griffiths are next, ahead of Paul Hinson and Gordon McMillan, whilst Mark Skeets and Alan Caulfield are just outside the top 10 on row 6. Matt Flowers and Craig Jameson are next, ahead of Keith Towers and Ray McDowell. Robert Marshall and Chris Hack on the 9th row of the grid together. And again, we'll have 33 starters for this race. And, well, what's going to happen at the front of the field? Stephen Daly, who started on pole in race 1, but lost the lead off the line to Ian Jones. Well, this time around, role reversal. Jones on pole, and Daly alongside with David May, who got his first ever podium on the road in the previous race. He, of course, he inherited a podium after Owen Hunter's disqualification at Castle Combe, but the first race here today, his first podium finish on the road, and race 2 is now underway as Ian Jones and Stephen Daly rush towards Old Hall Corner for the first time. Matt Parks there trying to get up the inside of David May, and Owen Hunter around the outside of the pair of them, and that looked like there was a bit of contact between the two of them. On board with Andrew Prince here in the midfield, and there are cars to the left, cars to the right. Oh, and there's a car spinning, and that's Chris Hack, and that was a fairly hefty whack there, I'm afraid, and that was such a shame. There was absolutely nothing Andrew Prince could have done to avoid that contact then. The car spun in front, the pack sort of split left and right in front of him, and there was nowhere for him to go. At the front of the field, meanwhile, David May, who looked like he'd lost a few positions at the start, he's actually back into 3rd place now as the recovery process begins down at Old Hall Corner. That may well require a safety car. Leaders, though, were at Shell, and it's all getting very, very congested at the front of the field as they pack their way into the banked right-hander. Jones leads the way. Daly 2nd. We're on board with him now in Casey Motorsport car. David May there in 3rd. Matt Parks 4th. Then Owen Hunter 5th. Paul Hinson is 6th position. And Paul Hinson, remember, 5th place in the championship coming into this race on dropped scores. He's actually 3rd on total scores. He's had a really, really good season, has Paul. But because he's had such a good season, he's dropping a few more points than those around him. The yellow flags, though, are out, and the safety car is coming out. So safety car called for before the end of the opening lap. That's a shame. We haven't seen that many safety cars this year in the Compact Cup. But this is why, because Robert Marshall, unfortunately, also involved in that one, it would seem. So a few cars that are off coming out of the first corner, and there's no choice, therefore, but to throw the safety car so that they can be recovered in a safe and efficient way as possible. So the race put on hold for the time being, and Ian Jones, having made the start, won't actually be too disappointed about this, because it means that he can at least have a bit of a rest. He will lose a couple of laps from the race distance, because of course all of these races are timed at 15 minutes, so it doesn't really matter if you could spend the whole 15 minutes behind the safety car, but if you do the full 15 minutes, it still counts as a result. So Ian Jones won't have to defend for quite as long now. But when we do go racing, defend he will very much have to do, because Stephen Daly, although we said in race 1 he doesn't want to take too many risks, he'll still want to win races where possible, and so he won't be keen on the idea of settling for 2nd place in this one. If there's a chance to find a way past Ian Jones, he will absolutely go for it. See the rest of the field streaming through, though. We may have lost a couple on that opening lap, but not that many, and we've still got 30 odd of them still circulating. There is the stricken car down at Old Hall Corner, and it's all unfortunately a product of racing here at Oulton Park. Old Hall Corner is a tricky first turn when you've got 33 cars piling in there 3 and 4 abreast. As soon as one gets on the grass on the exit, there's always the danger they're going to spin back across the road, and it was Chris Hack who was the man who appeared to go spinning first, and the field having to almost come to a standstill as they make their way through Old Hall Corner this time. But the ever hard-working and efficient British Marshals on the scene, and they're there to make sure the driver is okay, which I'm sure they are. The ambulance is there as a precaution only, I think, whenever you have an incident like that, and it was a fairly significant whack that they took, you'll always go for a little ride to the medical centre just for a check-up, but fairly sure the drivers involved are more or less okay. In fact, I think Chris Hack even managed to drive away from the incident. So, of course, he was the car that spun. I don't know whether he continued on his way or whether he's pulled off somewhere around the circuit, but Chris Hack has it. In fact, I believe he's been into the pit lane, so I think Chris has made it all the way back around to the pits, which is fantastic news. There you can see the marshals just getting the car on the flatbed. Here's a replay of the start, and you can see at the front it was an evenly matched start between Jones and Daly. Look at them, 3 abreast for second place. Matt Parks had a great getaway, got to the inside of David May, and then Owen Hunter, I'm sure there was contact there, but they just about got away with it. But then what happens back here? You're going to see an orange car appear stage right and get on the grass just there. That's Chris Hack. Oh, and contact with, I think, Wayne Flint. And that puts Chris Hack around. And then watch for Andrew Prince, because he has nowhere to go. Bang! Into the back of Chris Hack's car. And a real shame. And as I say, nothing that anyone could have done to avoid that, really. It was just a really packed field of cars making their way through the first corner. The tiniest of touches. Again, not intentional at all. And it triggers a car spinning in the middle of the pack, and that's never likely to end particularly well. So Andrew Prince then stranded in the middle of the road. Chris Hack continues on his way, but the rest of the field stuck behind the safety road. You can see there Andrew Prince immediately getting out of the car, so he's absolutely okay. But that car will need a fairly substantial repair job to be done for the next rounds of the championship at Thruxton. Only got 4 races to go in the championship after this weekend. 2 at Thruxton and 2 at Donington Park to round out the season, where they will once again be on the TCR UK package. And I know they're all really enjoying the extra profile that gives them. So the light's still on the safety car, and this is all playing beautifully into the hands of Ian Jones, because every lap that goes by is, I mean, a safety car lap around here, you're talking well in excess of 4 minutes. So in a 15-minute race, it really is eating into the race time, which is a shame for us because we want to see the race resumed as soon as possible. But Ian Jones would probably not mind particularly if the safety car stayed out all race long, because at least he'd be able to get that double race victory. Don't think Ian Jones has ever had a double race victory. I know he's won races in the past, but I don't recall that he's ever won 2 races in the same weekend. So Ian Jones, who we know is a proven quantity in this championship. We know he's quick. We know that he's always likely to be on the podium, and indeed his podium success rate this year has been remarkable. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... 6 podiums out of the 7 races that he's competed in so far this year. So only 1 race where he's not been on the podium, and that was the race, of course, at Castle Combe that he didn't finish. So he's been on the podium at every other race this year, has Ian Jones. And that consistency means that despite that non-finish, he is still 3rd in the championship. Well, now 2nd in the championship, because, of course, he beat Matt Parks in the first race, and they were only a point apart coming into that one. On dropped scores, Ian, though, is some 27 points off the championship leader. He was coming into the weekend. Of course, he took a couple out of Ian Jones in race 1, so it's down to about 25 points. But realistically, it's unlikely that Stephen Daly is going to be caught now, unless he were to have a disqualification himself. But you never know. I mean, we saw last year that the championship was actually decided after the end of the season, when James Gornall, who'd won the championship on points, was excluded for technical infringement. So, you know, these things can happen. We hope that doesn't happen again, because that's never the way that we like to see the championship decided. But it can occur, and Stephen Daly, I was talking to him actually on the Friday night here at Oulton Park, and he was saying exactly that. You know, he's got to be careful. He can't afford any issues, any contact, any technical infringements, anything that could get him in any sort of trouble with the clerk of the course, and therefore lead to a disqualification, because a disqualification cannot be counted as one of your 2 dropped scores for the season. So Ian Jones, with another win here, potentially in the offing, although he's still got some work to do, because I do believe we're going to go racing this time around, with the incident at Oulton Park Corner having been cleared up. But if Ian Jones can win this one, he will at least inch himself closer towards Stephen Daly. But Stephen Daly has yet to finish outside of the top 2 all year long. So even if Stephen started to have some slightly iffy results now, like, you know, off the podium, for example, they would then just become his drop scores, and you actually, one of the quirks of the drop score system is that you then start gaining points back because you start counting some of the podium finishes that you were previously dropping in the past. It's all a bit confusing, but of course it's all there so that if a driver, for whatever reason, and you know, club level motorsport, sometimes it does happen that a driver can't make it to one round, and it doesn't necessarily have to ruin their whole championship. So it's there for a reason, but it can be a bit of a headache sometimes keeping up with the points, particularly when we get down towards the business end of the season, which we are now fast approaching. So we're also, I believe, fast approaching a race restart here. The safety car, I think, is going to come in this time around, and it will be Ian Jones who is going to back the field up, weaving from side to side, getting ready for the restart, and eventually he will jump on the throttle and he will accelerate, he hopes, away from Stephen Daly. But Stephen Daly was well awake then when the race leader pulled away, and so he's been able to go with Ian Jones as they come across the hill. We've got Ben Huntley already on the grass. A bit of contact there between Paul Hinson and Sam Carrington-Yates. I think before they came to the line there was a bit of a mix-up there on the restart, and it's hurt Matt Parks as well, because look at that, Owen Hunter goes up the inside of him, whilst Ben Huntley and Gordon McMillan both go past Paul Hinson, but then they get into each other. They both run out wide. Hinson gets alongside. Kicked off already, 3 abreast down the avenue towards Cascades, and we'll wait and see how that one sorts itself out. There's more tyre smoke in front, which doesn't fill me with confidence, but let's hope they all get through the corner in more or less one piece. They do, with Hinson now back in front. So there we go. Paul Hinson lost 2 places and gained 2 places, all within the space of one corner, only in the Nankang Tyres BMW Compact Cup. Right then, leaders back through Island Bend, and it is a 6-car breakaway by the look of it. We're on board with the car that's second place in the queue, Stephen Daly, and he is looking back at David May in his mirrors, then Owen Hunter, then Matt Parks, and then Sam Carrington-Yates. Good to see Sam Carrington-Yates as he gets reacquainted to the car and the championship. Of course, former race winner is Sam Carrington-Yates, and he is getting closer and closer to the front of the field every time he's out there this year. Definitely someone who, if he came back next year, I reckon could be a championship contender. He has previously been a championship contender, of course. Leaders back over the hill, though, and David May having to defend this 3rd place now for Owen Hunter, and this is possibly going to allow the leading 2 to escape. Now, that will take a bit of pressure off of Stephen Daly in 2nd place, thus maybe allowing him to start applying the pressure to the race leader. Out of Knickerbrook they go. David May a bit wide, got onto the dirty side of the road. You saw the dust that was being kicked up there. We're late in the day here at Oulton Park. Had a lot of racing and a lot of dust and dirt and gravel that's been dragged onto the track down there. You can see the drivers doing it again there as they dip a wheel out onto the grass coming out of Knickerbrook, and that all ends up getting strewn across the track, particularly off the racing line. Look at all this. Ben Huntley now with Gordon McMillan trying to go around the outside at Druids, which is not necessarily advisable, but he's going to give it a go anyway. Cuts back to the inside on the exit of the corner as the 3rd place battle turns its way back through Lodge Corner. Owen Hunter looking a bit quicker than David May maybe at this stage of the race, and it would be just the tonic that Owen Hunter needs, I think, to get back on the podium. Didn't have a particularly good time of it in race 1. He managed to come home 4th place, but that by his standards is not a great finish. Stephen Daly, though, look, is really applying the pressure now to Ian Jones out in front. I was right in that as soon as the pressure was released from David May behind him, Ian Jones has been able to concentrate 100% of his attentions onto the rear end of Ian Jones's car and on trying to take the lead away from the number 59 machine, and he's latched onto that rear bumper now as they race down the Lakeside Straight once again. So getting into the closing stages of this race now, and Ian Jones is just about hanging on to the race lead, but Stephen Daly staying with him as they slide their way through Ireland, hard on the brakes. Look at Stephen Daly's car moving around under braking there. He was so late on the brakes then as he tried to find a way back through into the race lead. Out of Shell they go, down towards the Britain chicane. Very spectacular part of the circuit here to watch from as well, and you can see why, because the cars launch themselves over the curbs. Although actually, as I say that, these two are a bit more circumspect over the curbs than they have been on previous laps. But the more that Ian Jones starts to defend, the slower they will both start to go, and therefore the closer David May and Owen Hunter will start to get again. So that little bit of a break that they'd made is starting now to, that gap is starting to shrink again. Gordon McMillan and Tom Griffiths there ducking and diving down towards Hislops, with Gordon McMillan Still trying to keep Tom at bay, but Gordon McMillan has worked his way up the order quite nicely. Remember, he started 10th in the opening race, but only managed to finish, well, he finished 10th actually, so he dropped down the order. Then we saw all race long he was picking his way back up towards where he started. And he's running solidly inside the top 10 this time around. Here is the fight for third place though. David May with Owen Hunter all over him as they come out of Druids. And is Owen going to be able to have a go maybe down towards Lodge Corner? He's always good on the brakes, is Owen Hunter. But you do wonder whether maybe that incident from Castle Combe is playing on his mind. Maybe he's going to be a little bit more careful with his overtaking techniques this time around. Oh, David May running wide onto the grass. Owen Hunter will definitely get the run on him now across the start-finish line. But is he going to be able to get up the inside into Old Hall? I don't think he will. Look at this. Tom Griffiths, Paul Hinson, Gordon McMillan, they're all together again as well as they go across the start-finish line onto the final lap of the race. And Paul Hinson, yeah, losing out there to those two. They've both gone through. But Paul will now try and fight back, I'm sure, as soon as he can. As Owen Hunter goes up the inside of David May. This is for third position. And Owen Hunter, I think, is going to go through. Yes, he does. David May just can't quite do enough to hang on to the position. He got a wheel on the grass coming out of Cascades as well. But he's going to try and fight back. Remember, Owen Hunter's car potentially is a bit down on straight line speed with this new sort of last-minute engine change that they made overnight. And so David May won't have given up yet. He may be able to retaliate. But Owen Hunter, through the corners at least, seems to have really good pace in this race, and it's a shame in a way that we've had the safety car, because he possibly will have felt that he had a chance to go up there and challenge the top two had he had a bit more time to get past David May in the first place. Leaders back through Britons though for the final time, and Stephen Daly is within striking range here if he wanted to, a bit like we saw in race one really. If he gets close enough to have a go, then I think he will show his nose. And Ian Jones will have to be wary. He'll have to be watching the rear view mirrors over the final few corners. Daly not really close enough there into his lops. Jones was a bit deep on the brakes there, but Daly not really able to get up the inside. Then this fight for third, which again he's going to run right the way down to the final quarter, I think, with Owen Hunter, David May and Matt Parks now starting to regroup as well and close in on the pair of them. Underneath the Oulton Park Bridge, over the top of Clay Hill they go for the last time of asking, and Ian Jones looking for a historic double race victory to put himself firmly into second place in the championship and just inch his way back towards the championship leader Stephen Daly. It might not be quite over yet, this championship. If Ian Jones can keep on racking up the wins and Stephen Daly has some misfortune, it could all change. Down through Lodge Corner they come for the final time, and Ian Jones is indeed going to hang on to take a double race victory here at Oulton Park. Ian Jones flashes the lights and wins race number 2 here in the Cheshire countryside. Stephen Daly comes home second, third was Owen Hunter, and fourth for David May with Matt Parks fifth, then Sam Carrington Yates, Ben Huntley, Tom Griffiths, Gordon McMillan and Paul Hinson round out the top 10. Then it was Mark Skeets, Alan Caulfield, Robert Marshall, Craig Jameson and Keith Towers around out the top 15, ahead of Ray McDowell, David Sharp, Mikey Doble, Matt Flowers and Jonathan Atkinson in 20th. Mike Doble, then Jim Barrett, Nick Edmond, Wayne Flint, Aaron Morgan, Simon Welch, Brendan Murphy, Alessandro Albano, Martin Gadsby and Tim Scott Andrews are in the top 30. Craig Arkell, the last of the finishers. We lost, unfortunately, as a result of that first corner incident, Chris Hack and Andrew Prince, whilst Owen Hunter set the fastest lap.
That was great racing out there, Ian. You must have been thrilled. Not so much with the safety car, though.
Yeah, it's the first time I've been at the front with a safety car, so it's trying to pick it right. And Stephen was definitely there and ready. Yeah, it's short in the race, but apart from that, it's all good.
Another podium for you, Stephen, but this means that Ian's going to creep up on you in the standings.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the game's all about. I mean, that's motorsport. It's all swings and roundabouts, really. I mean, Ian's done a fantastic job this weekend. I knew straight from the word go Ian was going to be fast. Back when we were testing, I just knew Ian was going to be there or thereabouts. So there's no surprise he's standing on the top step today. This isn't one of my most comfortable tracks, so I mean, onto Thruxton and try and win the two there.
Owen, you came back battling there in that round to get P3.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't an ideal day starting P8 in race 1. I had to sort of pick my moments, but yeah, very happy to be on the podium.